So thank you for being here tonight. For those of you that don't know what the Vocal Jazz Academy is, I think you all do. So I'm just kind of going to say this, but we've been doing a lot of meetings over this whole summer on Thursday nights at this time, and we've been getting just a lot of people coming in from all over, the United States and from Canada as well. And it's just been really a nice way to, meet other people in the vocal jazz community, and just kind of carry what you were saying, get a pulse on what's happening everywhere. Um, and it's sort of based ish, I would say, out in California. If you don't know Ian Brecky, he is wonderful. He is my honey, and he's out at Las Positas College in Central California, and he is one of the what was your position with VJA?
In what? In what was
With
it?
Vocal Jazz Academy? Are you kind of like one of the, what do you do?
The three of us manage it. Me, Christine Guter, and Matt Falker. We typically manage and have been managing the weekly meetings. So I'm an honorary Midwesterner this week,
Yes.
sitting in with you guys. And I grew up in Minnesota, so
And your
I
schooling was Midwestern a little bit.
and a little bit of Swick as well. So I feel like I'm back home.
Cool.
Oh,
Awesome.
Janice is
So,
cool.
yes, Janice is. She wasn't sure which one she should go to, and so I'm like, you can hang out with us. Um, so, but we've talked about a lot of different topics over the last several weeks, just in terms of vocal jazz, in terms of what has happened, what we're thinking could happen, and just there's been very little going on in our country the last few months. I'm sure as you've noticed, but it's all stuff that is, I think, going to have an effect on how we teach vocal jazz. Hi, Janice. And so uh, we Matt decided to kind of break this out into regional meetings this week, just to kind of see if maybe we could get some more people who are from more concentrated areas, and so we'll see if more people show up. And so, but if not, great. We have a small but hearty crew. Um, so my name is Drew. I teach in the northern suburbs of Chicago. I teach high school. Formerly was at a university doing vocal jazz and music education, but now doing choir and vocal jazz. And uh, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself since you're right next to me?
Am I next to you?
You are. You're like
I'm Dan Gregerman. I'm also a high school director, entering my 35th year of doing this.
35th
And
and final.
final year. This is what a year to go into a retirement year, which answers the question in the email you sent, Greg. No, I did not retire yet. This is the year coming up. Um, and I've been blessed with the district. I'm in Skokie, Illinois, Niles North High School. I've been blessed with a district that just really supports what I want to do. So I have 5 concert choirs and 3 vocal jazz ensembles. And my dream finally came true in my last year. Now that we're not going to be in school, we're building a full-blown recording studio. I might never get to use it, but it'll be there. Um, and that's kind of what I do. I'm going to go, since, I don't know, are we doing introductions with Ian also? Because you're next in line. So I'll pass it to Ian and then it goes from there.
Sure, I'm happy to. I mean, Drew already kicked it my way, but I teach at Las Positas College, which is in the Bay Area in California, and am entering my 6th year with that program. So I feel like a lot of our weekly meetings, because there's such a strong California contingent of vocal jazz, a lot of the weekly meetings have skewed in that direction on how the fall is going to work. And so one of the inspirations for this was that the Midwest and the South and Canada they kind of all have different consensus of how things are going to operate this fall, um, whether it be politically or otherwise. So this was part of the inspiration for this group, was to truly get some of the core directors together and to have a real discussion about what's happening at your school this fall, and share some good ideas for what's going to happen. So next on my screen is Jeremy. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi, Jeremy. Yeah,
Y'all know me. I don't need to say
Who are you?
anything.
I don't think we've met.
I mean, I'll say basically what SWIC, what SMV is doing. Um, SWIC is coming up with a plan. Their plan now is to go face to face, but to start a week early and to end face to face right before Thanksgiving. So we typically have end of the semester recitals called final project recitals that typically happen like a week or two before Christmas, and so our students are going to be getting their final projects ready for the week before Thanksgiving, and uh, we are still going to have ensembles. You all know that our ensembles, our vocal jazz groups, tend to be 6 or 7. Every student is going to have their own microphone and their own mic cord, and they're going to plug in to a station that we will have taped to the ground way far away from the next person. And our concert choir is going to be 12 to 14 people at the most. And we're going to have multiple choirs this year. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing. We're spacing out our classes so that there's going to be an hour in between. I've read some science on air filters and HEPA filters that has been mixed but fairly positive. So we're using, I'm about to buy 15 HEPA air filters because why not?
You can have super.
And that's we're coming up with multiple plans, but right now we're concentrating on face to face. Tonight we're going to be working on our hybrid model right after this call, and probably next week we'll work on our online model just in case. But yeah.
Jeremy, for your singing stations, are they using headphones or are they all in a big room?
They're all going to be in a huge room.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right, thanks, Jeremy. Heather.
I'm Heather Nail. I know most everybody. I currently teach at Valley High School in West Des Moines, and this is going on 10 years in the district. For a very long time, I did our beginning jazz choir in our 9th grade building, and just in this last year, I moved up and kind of took over the whole jazz program up at Valley. And so I have 2 jazz choirs now, and we have 4 in our program, in our 9-12 program there. And we're also the host of our jazz championships. And a lot of you have been suckered into judging for me at this point. So yeah, we've got a lot of interesting things happening in our district right now. So
We'll get around to talking more about that, I think. So thanks, Heather. And Greg.
Hi, everybody. I'm Greg. I'm the director of vocal jazz at Western Michigan University, and yeah, we are doing a hybrid that skews face to face right now is our plan, with a lot of safety protocol in place. As I told my students last week, that is what we can do while you are in the building. What you do when you are out of the building will determine how long our in the building efforts last. So, but yeah, so we've got a little bit of a different situation in terms of kids, than some of you, with kids coming to live here where they study and how they're going to conduct themselves. But that's the plan right now. So, and Gold Company is probably going to be smaller. I mean, I have to really, because of the whole situation, I have to make sure that students who need that for their degree requirements are able to participate. And we are going to move into an in-ear monitor situation so that we can also stand safely distanced from everybody. And I just ordered my Broadway singer's mask today. Have you seen that? The one that comes out like that. So we're gonna do some, I don't know, like I can't really execute an aerosol study by myself here in Kalamazoo, but I'm just curious to see how it feels. Rosanna is also picking one up too, so we're just checking some things out. But
Cool. All right. So, in keeping with the spirit of the happy hour, if you have a drink, can you please raise your glass? And if you don't, that's okay. You know, you can pretend. But you know, just a toast to just all of you for everything that you had to deal with, you know, last year, you know, at the end of the year, and not really knowing necessarily what's happening. You know, here's to making the best of everything that comes our way, and hopefully this all will help us. So, cheers, everybody. Um, so I just want to do just a bit of a quick recap of some of the stuff that's been talked about in past meetings. I'm not going to spend a ton of time because all of these videos are available on the Vocal Jazz Academy Facebook. I think they're available on the Facebook page slash on the YouTube channel as well. So if you haven't joined the Vocal Jazz Academy page on Facebook, do that because then you'll start seeing announcements about these sorts of meetings and courses. So let me share this screen really quickly. Um, I promise it's all good thing. Oh, of course, it's not going to let me do it because I just updated. Okay, never mind that. That's fine. So deny. See, technology is not being my friend right now, but that's okay. But anyway, I can just talk about these sorts of things. The meetings have actually been going on since I think it's the end of May was the first meeting, and since then we've talked about a bunch of different stuff. So the first meeting in June was sort of a recap of how we taught in the spring, and which I'm sure many of us just maybe don't want to think about anymore because it was such a pivot from what we had to do. But we had a few educators talking about sort of what they did. Um, and again, that's available on the Vocal Jazz Academy page. Um, the next one was possibilities about how we could teach coming in the fall. Now, obviously, this was back in June, so we didn't know what all was going to be happening, and we're going to get to a little bit later about what you're seeing in terms of how your schools are opening or not opening in the fall. But there were some helpful things about some different technology, different apps, both on computer and on your phones and devices that could be helpful. Um, and that comes in a little bit more later as well. But the next one we talked about race conversations in vocal jazz, and I felt like this was a really important conversation we had as well. We had several Black vocal jazz educators talk, and it was really for me very enlightening just to kind of hear their experiences and just to listen to them speak. And I know John, you were on that, and I mean, you just know that it was so valuable to be able to hear that and to just be able to try and get an inkling of understanding of what you've seen and what you've experienced. Um, and there's going to be more about that. Actually, I'm going to mention a little bit later. There's going to be there's going to be a webinar coming up later this month with some talking about diversity in vocal jazz. The next meeting that we had was actually, I feel like all these are really important, but it was called "Can I Post That?" And how many of you did any sort of like virtual choir thing with your students during the spring semester? Yeah. So the big question was, did we do it legally? Is that allowed? Right? And so we had some really great help with that. We had Roger Emerson, we had Carrie March, and some others talking, and they pretty much know the business, and they talked a lot about different licenses we had to get and different all this sort of thing. But the good news is that a lot of the main streaming sites, such as YouTube, have blanket licenses that tend to be very helpful with that. And again, like I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to any of that. But if any of our composer or arranger friends that are in here want to bop in on that, feel free. Jeremy's like, nope, don't want to talk about that.
But one
Oh,
thing that we can say that we did learn, I think, is that if you have a question about it, just send Roger Emerson an email,
yes.
and he will likely have a decent answer for you. And also, he's just the nicest guy in the world, of course. So
Or like,
he'd be
if
happy to help.
you even mention his name anywhere on Facebook, like he will appear like the wind.
Right.
Like he's so good about that. It's amazing. And so and he really is the friendliest guy. He will respond to you as soon as he can, and he knows so much about this business. It's really a wonderful thing. But the main thing is, if you're not sure, it's good to ask, you know, and just make sure you're kind of covering, you're behind, and in all cases, but um, and then getting into July, we talked about how to record your ensembles. Now, this is something that is not only for vocal jazz necessarily, but it could also be for your other choirs or traditional choirs too. And Brian Daco over in California, he just went through a whole the demonstration of what he did with his ensemble, and Ian showed us some stuff too. And he used specifically BandLab. Oh no, Band is that what it's called? BandLab. Um, and so I know some of us also talked about using, gosh, what's it called?
Soundtrap.
Soundtrap. Sorry, my brain is all July right now. But so using Bandland or Soundtrap is a really cool alternative to having to use something like Logic or Pro Tools or anything like that. That is much more in depth and big bucks, and probably something that your students aren't going to really want to dive into. Um, but I will in a little bit. I'm going to share a couple of documents that came from that particular meeting, as well as another meeting about possible sound reinforcement for rehearsals during vocal jazz ensemble rehearsals. And I know who was saying that they were going in your monitors. Was it Greg that said that?
Yeah.
So, and Dan, you're doing it too. And so Brian Daco put together this really great document that it would be really easy to present to whoever is in charge of your money at school, and in your monitors, wired, and with a great possibility of social distancing during rehearsals. Now, if we go virtual and remote, then that is moot at this point, obviously. But it may not be a bad thing to consider. Um, so, has anybody I I did use the free version of Soundtrap at first, Mike, when I was working on our graduation thing. Um, but I eventually upgraded because I wanted to download better quality audio because they kind of it worked fine. I was able to have students record, at the same time, and nothing was lost. Um, okay,
I'll
John.
agree. I'll agree with you too, Drew. Is that I did use Soundtrap solely and had lots of kids doing collaborative projects that came out great, and they had a lot of success with it. The other thing you also have to be careful with which was something that we discussed on July 2nd on the thing that you were talking about, Drew, was Band Lab does not tend to work as well on the Chromebooks, which is what a lot of the schools use. Soundtrap seems to work better on the Chromebooks. So those are all things you have to kind of weigh in when you're looking at these things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some people were saying that they experienced some negative things on Soundtrap that other people didn't experience, and so I think it depends largely on your equipment and your internet speed, and just like everything else, you know. Um, I just dropped two documents into the chat dealing with using BandLab and also the wired in your monitor configuration for rehearsals. So again, this assumes that there's money to use for this, and for those of us that may not have that, then that makes it difficult, of course. But um, one thing, and on another webinar that I was on a while back with Mary Jo Papich, she talked about a lot of different funding sources, grants, technology budgets in your schools, because this is technology. So there are possibilities everywhere if you're able to kind of look for those things. Um, okay, so where was I? Okay, so yeah, so recording your choir, and one thing that Brian did say was that he prefers to have his students forward into BandLab or Soundtrap or whatever, and then he takes the stuff out and he goes and puts stuff into Logic, so that he can have better control of just the mixing. Because those of you who've used it, Soundtrap and BandLab, they're pretty basic as far as DAWs go. There's not a lot you can do with it necessarily. So if you want to have more control of your mixing, then Logic is probably the way to go with that. Um, And that's also been my experience. Like Soundtrap was pretty basic, but it worked for what I needed it to do, you know. Um,
But Drew, if I can add in,
yes.
remembering that what the kids use doesn't have to be the same as what we use. So the like I agree with you, Logic or Pro Tools, you know, I'm doing a lot right now with Logic, um but the kids can use Soundtrap or BandLab to record their stuff and send it to you. It's not going to make a difference.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, one thing that I gained out of this was that I found out that I had some students who were really interested in learning how to mix sound. So I was able to use that to my advantage, and they helped mix some of our graduation stuff. You know, so you might find that you have students that want to work on that sort of stuff, and you know, less work for me. I mean, not less work because I still have to supervise, but certainly it was nice to have another few sets of ears on that for sure. Um, so then last week, which will go down in infamy as apparently, even though I missed that meeting, there was remember all that talk about Zoom bombing that happened during remote learning? Well, they got Zoom bombed last week. It was great from what I heard, like quality. It is not on the recording, unfortunately. Well, fortunately.
It's all perspective, Drew.
Uh,
Unfortunately.
Fair. But before the Zoom bomb happened last week, they were talking about the possibilities of virtual vocal jazz festivals. Um, and so, and I know that there's some ideas baking, and perhaps some of you that were on those meetings last week can talk about that a little bit later. But so that is kind of the stuff that went down over the last couple of months. So there's been a lot of conversation. I know for me personally, it's kind of helped center me a little bit and helped me realize that like I'm not the only one feeling the way I'm feeling, you know, just about this upcoming year. Um, so it's been really kind of cool. So in terms of that, are there any questions like just you know that might have popped up from anything I might have said? Um, I know all I'm thinking about right now is barbecue because John mentioned it, and um, I has anybody used Audition? I know that Nori just asked that. I've not. I've not. I've heard that it was pretty easy to use, though. I've heard good things about it. It's just I haven't personally had any working with it.
I just know I have access to it. So
Oh. Through your school?
yeah.
Oh, well, that sometimes makes it worth learning if you got access.
And yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'll just toss in there too. I was a little late coming, sorry, because I couldn't get into the West. They wouldn't let me in the room, so then I came to Midwest. Okay, I was just I'm at Brigham Young University, Idaho, in Rexburg. I know that our choirs they're cut in half, but we have this 9 foot spacing rule for all of our singers. I just wondered if that is kind of in line with everybody else's that 9 foot measurement.
I've been hearing anywhere between 6 and 10, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Um,
150 square feet per singer is what we have.
150 square feet per singer.
But
I think what's going to be interesting is if the date is correct. I think July 25th
Hmm.
is the date that the big studies are going to be released of all the stuff that's being studied scientifically and everything. And that I believe it's July 25th is all these, you know, the complete aerosol, I can't even say the stupid word now, aerosolation reports and everything are supposed to come out of what they see is really going on. But I think July 25th, have any of you read that also?
A vocal one just came out of Colorado last week, and that was more for solo teaching and singing. And then a band one recently came out, and I think the ensemble one, choral ensemble one, is coming out at the end of this week.
right, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, and so I haven't read the solo voice one, but I've seen a bunch of sort of summaries about that. So a new implication from that one is how long you should be in a voice lesson. You can make a determination then about a rehearsal with an ensemble. We expect that to be the case, but you don't. But you know how. So you want to be in an ensemble, in a rehearsal or a lesson for no more than 30 minutes, or definitely not an hour. And then you need, depending on the airflow in the room, at least 20 minutes for the aerosols in the room to be sort of taken out by the HVAC system. So we are already looking at how we schedule things at Western, and you know, giving every room time to get cleared out again. But I think the big Colorado study for ensembles is coming out at the end of this week.
I think so. Yeah.
which would be tomorrow.
I think it might be the 25th.
Yeah, because I heard the 22nd and then I heard the 25th. So
Okay.
I'm going to assume later, and if it comes out earlier, bonus. Is
Sure.
where I'm going with
Yeah,
that.
my head of choral studies was mentioning the 25th the other day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, any information at this point is good information. I mean, it's just, I know, I'm sure most of you feel this way too, is just feeling like at this point in the summer, not knowing what's happening, you know, completely, is really frustrating. Because, you know, not that I've always thought about things super early, but at least I know, like, you know, the general gist of things. But right now, there is no general gist because this is all just so weird. But, so does anybody, some of you have talked about this already, but does anybody know at this point what your school opening looks like? And if, I mean, for some of you, I mean, does anybody open in the next couple of weeks? I know there are some really early starters. Not here.
In Urbandale, there's an elementary school that starts on the 27th. They're, I think, the first one in our state, and they were originally, they're kind of on a longer extended calendar than some of the other traditional model schools around here. They just changed their plan, and they will be going fully online.
Oh.
My school was one of the earliest ones to, we had a board decision this week, and our board approved the plan that we will go back. Families have two options. They can either go back 5 days a week full-time in class, or they can go completely online, and they need to make that determination by the 31st of this month is the goal. But we had an 80% school survey that said they were still planning on being in class, which means our class sizes will still be 100. We are not going to an AB model where we would have half the school on one time. So Valley High School at 80% is still a 1,700 person building. And then one of the other things that speaks to what you were talking about with the aerosol study that Greg was talking to, and the amount of time that you're supposed to be in a rehearsal, what we're finding is a lot of the schools in our area are looking at going to a full block model, which we haven't been on before, which means our classes won't be 45 to 50 minutes long. They're going to be 90 minutes long. And so we are a little bit on pins and needles for the rest of this survey to come out knowing that, because they have not built in a secondary plan for those of us who now are 100 people in one room and 90 minutes of rehearsal. And so we're lucky that our performing arts facility, and those of you who have been in it, you know, it's a large space. We have two air handling systems. There's one air handling system on the stage, and it's a full Civic Center size stage. And then we have a 1,200 seat auditorium. And so our plan is to get approval to move all of our choral ensembles into that space, spread our students out on the one air handling system, put us on the stage, and use the performing arts facility as much as we can for rehearsals. They did mandate masks for all staff and all students in our district.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, Janice.
So we're still waiting for the final word. We've been told that we're going to go back into phase 4, which is putting us on a 4x4 block like Heather. But then what they're going to try to do is schedule the big choirs or the big bands the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So those kids would stay home and do the online class and then come to school. So I would teach online, but then I would teach at school the smaller jazz choirs. But then I would go into other people's classes and relieve them and watch the kids while they have lunch. And then if somebody gets COVID, I know that I was like, whoa, that's awesome. And then if somebody gets COVID, then we go back onto phase 1, which is at home, but then you go home for 2 weeks, but then you go back onto phase 3, which is a modified phase 4. So I literally have no, yeah, that's what I feel. I'm looking at your faces and I'm so glad, because I don't know how to do anything. I know nothing. So that's where sometimes I just bury my head in the sand and and do nothing. And then other times I start to try to feel motivated, but then it's hard to know what to do. So that's where we're at. But I really want to watch people's classes while they eat lunch.
Janice, everything you just said made me think I need a drink. So I looked at my clock, and it's, I think we're supposed to drink at 8 at like the half hour, right?
Bottom of the hour.
Bottom of the hour. Bottoms up.
Bottom of the hour.
7:30.
Janice inspired us.
Thank you, Janice. This is
Bottoms up.
Is that water you're drinking, Janice?
It is. I might have made some bad choices last night.
No, they were good choices. There's no
Save your
bad.
bad choices for Thursdays, Janice. Come on. Okay.
A little too much peanut butter whiskey, and I woke up this morning. I was like, "Oh, my head."
Can I get anybody anything?
Oh, I'll take
Nice.
I didn't realize just how literally you all were going to take this happy hour idea. I didn't bring anything to bed with me.
That's some little personal, I think, but talk about Zoom bombing. No.
we don't need the bomb. We got the Dan. So,
I'll talk for a second because we just got our stuff. So our district finally announced last Friday that we're going to do 2 weeks at the beginning at home. And then at Labor Day, we're going to start phasing in. Of course, what that meant, we have no idea, because it was students that need things, services, but then they said special activities. So what does that mean? I do know that I found out 2 days ago that the first special activities coming in are special education and ELL, those classes, and that from there, they're talking about hands-on activities or things that need laboratory experiences. Not sure what that is. But I also am lucky I'm on a committee tomorrow. We have a 2-hour meeting with the athletic directors, the fine arts directors. We have 2 high schools in our district. So the athletic directors, the fine arts directors, the student activities directors. We selected some student leaders from athletics and fine arts. And also we hand selected some parents that we know are outspoken. And then I get to fortunately be on it as the union rep, but at least I got a seat at the table representing the union, but also being fine arts. And we're being tasked with trying to figure out for those things, athletics, activities, and fine arts, what we should be doing entering the school year and the fall and first semester, what things should look like. So nothing has been decided for that stuff yet. It gives me a glimmer of hope because as much as I love everything that I do, if I had to prioritize, I would love to do vocal jazz first, and my vocal jazz ensembles are smaller. So it's easy to put a 12 voice or even a 16 voice group in my choir room and spread them way out. So, you know, we'll go from there and see what happens. But we've just ordered, I've got a proposal on board that looks like it's going to go for the in-ear monitors and being able to spread everybody out. But for me, even if we don't get the in-ear monitors on time, if we can have 12 to 16 vocalists in the room at the same time, even if they have to wear masks, I would prefer to have an ensemble, not even get the sound system out, but know I've got kids in the room together, around each other, creating music, being with each other, and worrying about a mask coming off or a sound system later. To me, it's, you know, that stuff is all later. It's getting kids in the same room, people in the same room.
Yeah, it's exactly
feeding off of each other.
It's the personal being in the room thing that's so important to all of us at this point, including not the least of which the students who haven't had a chance to interact maybe, and making music we know, is so important. So being in the room regardless of what the situation is. That's what we're hoping to do at Syracuse, finding huge spaces for small groups to gather. My intent was my 2 groups break one of the groups into 2 groups of 7, and the other group is a 7 voice group anyway, and go with go in the chapel, which is a large space, 7 at a time, and just dedicate my semester to acoustic a cappella music. Study some swingle singers, study some some a cappella Greg Jaspers and Jeremy Fox arrangements, and so on and so forth, and make it completely acoustic. Take the microphone situation out of the picture, because it's a nice reverberant space. There weren't going to be any concerts anyway, so maybe we can make do online presentations and some decent recordings. But being in the rooms together rather than virtual, which is not a thing for me.
Do any of you have requirements that are going to make it so that your singers have to sing with a mask? I mean, are there some places that are requiring that?
Yes, we are in New York. It's going to be, you have to have a mask on.
We are too.
Yeah, we are. Whether our administration tells us we have to or not, we are.
That's how I feel. I feel like I need to until anything. I mean, I don't, especially with the choral stuff, we haven't heard a word about but I assume that the state of Illinois is, you got to wear it in when you're going into public places like, Walmart, CVS, any place where there's people. So I'm assuming it's the same for schools. I haven't heard that definitive, but I just feel personally, it's one of those things. I don't feel too bothered about things, but I feel like I need to do what I can to keep people safe. And I think that's one of the ways to be responsible, to keep people safe. And I've had that conversation because I have 2 other assistant vocal jazz directors, and I have a rhythm section director who's I think 72 now, who just last week, Barry, Drew, he just last week got diagnosed after his first year, now being cancer free after a year. And he was like, I want to be there. He does my rhythm sections. He's like, we can go in the band room and spread the kids out into 4 different corners, but we could be there with kids. So,
Barry was diagnosed with what?
He had cancer, and fortunately he fought it. And it was like, trying to remember, because he had a couple of different things going on.
Okay, when you said diagnosed, I thought you meant with COVID. It's like, sorry.
No, cancer. No. He had cancer that was like almost a year. It's little over a year ago now.
He's immunocompromised. He shouldn't be in the building.
Right, but he's even said his doctor said it's fine. He said his doctor said no problem, just wear a mask. So, wow. I'm not forcing anybody. He wants to. So.
All right, good luck.
What's the scene like up in Wisconsin? I see my Wisconsin friends up there. What's happening with your schools?
Yeah, the university where I teach, and I think the whole UW system is basically taking an approach of a hybrid model. Most classes that can be taught online are going to be taught online. Hybrid classes for large ensembles is I think what we're looking at, meaning if there's a big ensemble like the wind ensemble or the symphony orchestra that rehearses 5 days a week, maybe it's just the violins one day, socially distanced 9 feet apart, and so forth. So for vocal jazz, luckily they did our 9-foot bubbles, and I can fit 16 people in my rehearsal room with one director in that 9-foot, 9-foot socially distanced bubbles. So we're going to go forward with that, probably acoustic to start with. I like the idea of the inner ear monitors. And we'll just kind of see where that goes from now. I guess something I'm curious where everyone's thinking curricularly as you're planning things. I'm imagining no one's having concerts. Our administration said, no concerts, no public events for the whole fall semester at least. I guess I'm wondering if everyone's planning on doing some recordings. That's kind of what we're looking at right now, is just rehearsing and doing either some live stuff online or doing some quality recorded stuff. Wondering what everyone else's goals are kind of with where you plan to go with that, what you plan to do.
We are going to do a little bit of performance outside for the first 2 weeks of school until the weather gets bad.
2 weeks. It's a short window in Iowa.
This is why the Midwest had to talk, because of that exactly. Yeah, for my school, they haven't announced anything like officially yet, but they think we're going to be going in completely remote first, kind of like what Dan's school is doing, but they haven't really given us a time limit as far as how it could last. Um, oh, Matt wants to come in. I should kick him out. um, but then they eventually want to try and phase in students back into school. Not sure if it's going to be an A/B sort of situation, but we are definitely on a block schedule. We're on a 4 by 5. Well, we have 9 periods a day, so we have 5 classes one day, four the other, and kids meet every other day, basically. But they want to try and do the beginning of the year with remote plus services, meaning some extracurriculars, some other clubs and stuff like that, just so we don't completely have the kids not interacting at all. And so I'm for that. It just depends on how we can make it happen. So the only extracurricular I have is like a madrigal slash a cappella ensemble, and so I have the audition in the fall, so I could make it smaller so we could rehearse inside. But realistically, we'll be rehearsing outside if anything. Um, and for when we do go back, the choirs and bands have first dibs on the auditorium for rehearsal space. But the problem is the way it got scheduled at the end of last year. Two of our classes meet at the same time. So like our beginning choir and band, and then our intermediate choir and band. I'm like, okay, that needs to change, but who knows at this point. So I think I'm in the same place as the rest of you, where we think we maybe know what's happening, but not so much, and that's about it. So I'm glad to know it's you know, not just me.
Tim, to answer your question, we are we are going to do some, supposedly we're going to do live performances, as long as the students can do so safely, and that the venues will only be at 25% capacity. So households that are not, or people who are not all in the same household, have to sit at least 6 feet apart. And so we're going to manage that. We're doing timed ticketing, so people are told when to come. We're filling the hall from the front to the back, and then same thing in terms of getting people out of there. And then we're putting in a couple cameras to stream concerts, and Western is finally joining this century. We'll have a mobile cart to stream rehearsals and things like that in other spaces, and then the recital hall will have a permanently installed system. So I'm planning to kind of take advantage of that, still offer concerts if I safely can, just for my kids being as close as they're going to be on the stage, and then also hopefully use that to do some sort of video recording, so that if we do end up going totally online, we have things that we can still broadcast, or we can still do a concert that we recorded 2 weeks ago, or stuff like that. Yeah, I guess I'm looking at more things like that in terms of performance for Gold Company and GC2.
Tim, I want to jump in here too, because our school is using the wired in-ear monitor model, and so we are rehearsing. The students are going to be like 20 to 30 feet apart. We're not on the 6 to 10 foot thing, so we're using our entire main theater, and we've measured everything, and we can get about 12 people in there. So we are tentatively planning on rehearsing together. Everybody walks to their station, plugs in their microphone, and then they've got their belt pack, and they plug in their headphones, and hypothetically, we can rehearse. So it's going to be one big experiment. But then projecting that outward, I'm planning on doing some Facebook Live concerts or something similar to that, where I can at the very least get sound off the board. And the dream, of course, would be that everybody sets up their phone at their little singing station, and then I don't know if it's like a Zoom call, but we only use the audio off the board or something, but you can see everybody individually, but you can hear the board mix from that. So we're just really trying to maximize the technology we have available. And I also, just in kind of setting that model up, was trying to think like, what if new, more strict mandates go into effect? Can I make it as bulletproof as possible for that? So even if our county shuts down anything 6 foot rule, if it turns into like a 15-foot rule, I've already accounted for that. So that's kind of what we're planning. And if it doesn't work and we have to go fully online and go back to the virtual choir model, then yeah, I don't want to do that, but we'll find a way. But so we're just trying to do the in-person thing, but as spaced out as possible, basically.
Thanks.
Is there a reason I shouldn't just use the sound system in our rehearsal space and avoid the IEMs? Just out of curiosity.
I think it depends on how many, how you use your monitors, like how the students hear what they're doing in terms of what they hear for reinforced sound. One of the reasons I want to move to in-ears is because if I go for 9 feet apart for my singers, no one's going to be in a good place in terms of the monitors that are on the floor, because that's how we set up. We have monitors on the floor. We don't have monitors permanently installed, so they set up the system for every rehearsal, and so it's just that would be unideal for one reason, and then it just minimizes contact points too, in terms of setting up the system and touching all the monitors and the cases and all that stuff.
I'm going to have a dedicated technician, so that's his job, is to make sure we don't touch anything.
Yeah.
I also have the advantage of having mirrors, so they'll be able to see each other and hopefully respond to each other via mirrors rather than having to face each other.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's smart.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hey, Greg, assuming that you're using a system, the in-ears, because we're, like I said, about to order stuff like Shure or something like that. Have you thought through the process? Are the kids going to need to get removable earbuds, or are you just going to sanitize the earpieces each time? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I haven't ordered anything yet, but I'm going to try to order enough headphone sets so that each student has their own. It will be owned by the university, but they'll keep that and be responsible for that, all semester long or all year long.
So all they have to do is plug into the receiver.
Yeah, to their battery pack.
Yeah,
so
that's not a bad idea.
We're going to be wireless, so
I'll have to look into that. I didn't think about that. That's a great idea, because otherwise I was thinking I might have to just, every time we're talking about trying to do 3 days in a row. So one vocal jazz group rehearses one day, the next one's not till the next day. So there's, 24 hours, so to speak, in between rehearsals, which would mean at the end of a rehearsal, we could clean everything with alcohol and everything and let it sit until the next rehearsal. I think that would be safe, but I like your idea. I don't know why I didn't think about that, as if I can afford to order extra ones.
Yeah, and I talked to Jennifer, and I think we mentioned this in one of these meetings earlier. We talked to Tony Huerta, and then we talked to Brian Farina, and so we if you buy the Sennheiser system, what Sennheiser sends you for earphones are pretty reasonable, like maybe $40 for a headset. So anyway, it doesn't have to break the bank,
I'll shoot you a text later to see what model you're looking at, because
Yeah.
I've spec'd the Shure. I think they're the SM200s or something like that, but I don't have to get, I haven't done the order yet, so I can look at all that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And the other thing is, if anybody else is considering this, Tony, because of his work with Take Six and the fact that it's specifically a cappella, talked about having several different mixes for different singers and different configurations, and so that the person who's doing bass and the person who's doing vocal percussion and then the leads and all that stuff, and it's just philosophically that's different than what we do when we're doing a vocal jazz group, I think. But we're all sending one vocal mix through our monitors on the floors, right? And so I don't need a bunch of transmitters to create different mixes for my vocalist, because that then defeats the purpose of being able to hear the whole ensemble the way that we do. And you know, I'm always trying to build ensemble sound acoustically first, and then to just elevate that with amplified sound to equalize the sound on stage. So again, you know, with one transmitter, you know, you can really cover the whole group, and then it's just a mono sound. So anyway, but it's going to be a learning curve for me. You know, I'll need my own headset to listen and make sure that they're getting what they need.
I think
anyway.
we're going to get addicted. I think it's going to be hard to go back.
Yeah.
We're going to have so much listening power, and we're going to hear everything, and then we're going to have to go back to floor wedges, and it's going to be such a disappointment.
Except those kids that are with us doing that for a year are going to be bang up musicians with great ears the following year.
The idea, yeah.
they know that we can get to them. So, well, we have just about 5 minutes left. This went by a lot more quickly than I thought it was going to. There were just a couple more things that I was going to bring up, but I think maybe we can leave those till next time we do. We're going to have another one of these breakouts sometime in August, so where we can discuss, you know, some more specific things. But one thing I wanted to maybe, because I know we've got some people in here who this is directly related to, people that are doing festivals or that normally do vocal jazz festivals. What are those going to be looking like next year? Are they going to be looking like anything? And you probably don't have answers at this point. That's cool. But I'm sure that we, meaning all of us educators out here who want to come to the festivals, are going to have questions about those at some point. So, you know, but we can leave that till the next meeting. And then the other thing is, you know, just given the fact that we are probably going, you know, at best be in person and then remote, and, you know, some combination of those things, you know, we look at some of the people that are in this meeting, and there are plenty of them who would love to come, you know, and talk to your students and, you know, like just work with your students virtually. And this, you know, as crappy as remote learning is for what we do, it does afford us the opportunity to get to work with some really awesome people because of the way the schedules work, you know. So, you know, and if you come to the larger meetings that happen every Thursday, you know, you're going to see a lot of these people, a lot of people that you see on your charts, you know, in those meetings. And so it's a really great place to network with them. And so, you know, use that for sure. So just a few things before we get out of here. So at 8 o'clock, which is a few minutes from now, and by happy hour, we actually mean happy hour. It doesn't go longer than this. But at 8 o'clock, there are going to be some breakout rooms open on Facebook during the Vocal Jazz, or on the Vocal Jazz Academy page. So there's going to be a room for you know, grades 6 through 12, and then another room for college folk. And so if you want to keep on talking, it's possible that people from the other regional chats will go into there. So definitely check that out if you want to. The nationwide happy hours, these are going to continue until mid-August. So if you would like to, you know, continue coming to these, please do join the Vocal Jazz Academy page. Always on Thursdays from 7 to 8 Central, or 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Paris time, Carrie. And I think I said there's going to be another Midwest Breakout happy hour sometime in August. We're not sure. We'll get that information out. And also in late July, there's going to be a cool webinar called "Embracing and Encouraging Diversity as a Vocal Jazz Educator." And Ian, can you talk a little more about what you know about that? Because I know it was a former student of somebody's.
I'm sorry, I was pulling links online and stuff. I wasn't listening closely.
The diversity webinar that's coming up. Was that?
Yes.
Yeah, can
totally.
you talk about that a little bit?
Terrence Taylor is a former student of Christine's, and I sang with him at Sacramento State, actually. And his job now, what he does is diversity training with large corporations. So he's been doing a lot of those recently in light of national news. And he approached us and said, "This is what I do, and I also have over 20 years of singing in vocal jazz ensembles as a black man, and I would love to combine those things and share what I know and talk about how we can do better." And so he sent us some really awesome slides to review, and we've all three of us individually have had really great conversations over the phone, just prepping, doing some pre-screening questions for directors. And so he's prepared to lead a great discussion for us. And I think there has also been mention of putting together some sort of documentation for doing this training, and then having even some sort of certificate that you can bring to an administration. So we're looking into those options as well. But Terrence is prepared to lead that, and I think we're targeting the end of July for that. I think it's that last Friday in July. Matt is going to announce that in the next couple days, so be looking for that as well.
Awesome.